Hello, friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Solovyev and the Arithmetic of War, how Russian propaganda explains the price of human lives. In the latest episode of Sunday Evening, Vladimir Solovyov once again offered viewers his usual mix of pseudo-patriotism, humiliation of opponents, and the arithmetic of death. This time, the main story was the data on the body swap between Russia and Ukraine, with carefully emphasized proportions. 1,000 Ukrainian bodies versus 31 Russian ones. From this, the host concludes that Kyiv's losses are 20 times higher. Then follows a damning conclusion. Ukrainians, he claims, don't value their own citizens, while Russia fights balanceedly and with a sense of duty to the people. Distortion of reality as an argument. The main point of this speech is not the numbers. The numbers here serve only as a dramatic accessory. Solovyov constructs a narrative in which Russia is not the aggressor, but a restrained force, suffering minimal losses, and yet forced to destroy thousands of Ukrainians, whom the West is allegedly throwing to the slaughter. This isn't about facts, but about a psychological redistribution of blame. The victim becomes guilty because she went to the front herself and didn't pay compensation for the bodies. This rhetorical turn plays on the internal fatigue of the Russian audience. We're losing, but less than they are, while simultaneously replacing moral judgment with arithmetic. War is transformed into an accounting report. Cynicism disguised as pride. When Solovyov says that Russia doesn't make decisions to please Besson and his husband or Trump and his voters, he reinforces the model of isolation. Any external pressure is a manifestation of the hostile West. Any dissent is interference with sovereignty. The idea of a self-respecting country that is not subject to sanctions, losses, or international law also makes sense in this system. The sarcastic attacks on Zelensky and the Ukrainian language serve not as random mockery, but as a demonstration of a new norm. Humiliating an opponent is a form of loyalty. The host openly contrasts the sacred life of Ukrainian discourse with the harsh rationality of Russia. This isn't simply a justification of violence, but an aestheticization of its inevitability. We are a self-respecting country. As our commander-in-chief has said, a self-respecting country doesn't succumb to pressure. Therefore, when people of a strange orientation, like Besson, start saying that Russia has behaved in some way, and therefore is imposing sanctions to force us to do something, he simply can't understand. We don't do this to please Besson and his husband, not, as we know, the couple, not to please Donald Trump and his voters. In our country, the commander-in-chief makes decisions based on the deepest interests of our people and the need to ensure our country's security for decades to come. But one of the narratives that is regularly promoted is that Russia is suffering colossal human losses and that Russia is paying for this in meat, something Zelensky always says. Europe as a backdrop, not a participant. In the context of the program, Europe appears not as an independent entity, but as a field for foreign decisions. The Poles have issued a plan for strengthening. The Americans are supplying weapons. All these inserts create the image of a continent that lives by external instructions and is incapable of pursuing its own policy. This is an important point. Russian propaganda doesn't seek to convince Europeans that they are with Russia. It seeks to convince Russians that Europe doesn't exist as a political entity, the meaning of this arithmetic. The main goal of such stories is to normalize war as routine. If 1 in 20 sounds not like a tragedy but like a statistic, then it's okay to fight a little longer. When every mention of casualties is accompanied by the phrase, Russia is a self-respecting country, the logic of compassion is replaced by the logic of superiority. superiority. It's important for European readers to understand this isn't just domestic propaganda. This is a demonstrative rethinking of the ethics of war, an attempt to turn mass death into proof of national strength. This is precisely the danger, not loud threats or declarations of new sanctions. Solovyov's Russia doesn't directly threaten the West. It's trying to convince itself that tragedy is a form of victory. And as long as this arithmetic is broadcast as the norm, any diplomatic rapprochement with the Kremlin will remain just an episode in a long play of self-justification. This was the program Empire of Lies with you. See you soon.